your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.
Good evening, horror fans. Welcome to another edition of the Weekly Horoscope. I'm your host, Jerry, here with my partner, Matt. And Matt, this week we're going to tackle a taboo subject here, something that has been handled in the horror industry kind of with a little bit delicate gloves. We're going to talk about Nazi nastiness. And although World War II ended 78 years ago now, this is something that permeates society and it just emotes, elicits emotion from people very strongly. What's your thoughts on this subject?
A couple of years ago, I read a book called Ordinary Men. It's about the 1st Battalion from World War II, the Nazis. Very powerful book, left an impression on me. I have a quote from that book. It says, "No chance to step out was given to those who did not feel up to shooting. No one systemically excused those who were visibly too shaken to continue. Everyone assigned to the firing squads took his turn as ordered." And that's just left an impression as far as how dark of a time it was in human history to have gone through World War II and what the Nazi regime represented. As far as recorded history, I don't think there was anything more dark. And it really does paint a good picture for a horror movie, because we can't really imagine anything more evil that occurred in the last 100 years than World War II. And so a lot of these movies just have to play with that theme and that theme alone, and it's horrific.
Yeah, and I think it's I agree with your point. I think it is a delicate subject to work with, because you can't even in a movie that's kind of over the top and fun, you can't ever take away from the real tragedy that occurred. And I agree with you. When you think of personification of evil, I don't think history has given us anything that would jump to your mind faster than the Nazi regime. So it's true evil in human form.
Yep. Yeah, just the symbolism itself. When people see it, it just kind of, it strikes horror when you look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. A symbol of hate and a symbol of horror. Absolutely. Our first movie is called Apt Pupil, and it's from 1998 and directed by Bryan Singer, pre X-Men days. And this movie is kind of an under the radar Stephen King adaptation. And they don't really, the advertising doesn't really lean into the, Stephen King's Apt Pupil, because it's a subtle horror. It's definitely more of a horror of the mind than your typical slash or kill or those types of things, although there are some of those elements, but it's really psychological horror.
One of the things I liked about the psychology of the story, though, was that it's a very bizarre, twisted relationship with a child that's bribing an old man to teach him his treacherous ways. Whereas typically we'd see like a Gran Torino type, like, all right, the old man who had done bad things is going to teach this young kid how to be a virtuous young man. And in this movie, it's like the opposite, which is actually a really good twist.
Yeah, it creates for an interesting character study, and this is really a what they used to call a two-hander, where it's the bulk of the story is our main two characters in one room, and other things are brought in to flesh these out. But the whole movie is basically about the relationship between these two characters. The movie takes place in 1984, and in high school they are studying the Holocaust. And a student, Todd, takes a great interest and immerses himself into the material. And he really starts studying up, doing work on his own, even outside of the class structure.
And he's a 16-year-old senior. He's the head of his class. He's going to finish number one in his class. He's a straight A student. He's a brilliant kid.
Yeah, very smart. But we also will quickly see underneath all that shiny exterior, there's some darkness that really gets pulled out.
Which is I thought was interesting, because I don't know if Stephen King intended this at all, but there's the book Thus Begs Zarathustra, which was written by Nietzsche, and he basically in that book talks about how the higher form of intelligence can lead you down a path of evil, basically. And it's kind of interesting that this super hyper intelligent smart kid can kind of kind of takes that lean. It was just interesting. I don't know if it was done on purpose, but symbolism. It was an interesting part of the symbolism.
On the internet last week, I saw a little blurb that said, if you find these dark humor situations funny, you may have a high level of intelligence, and they associated the two, somewhat twisted humor and intelligence. Yeah. So it's kind of a similar idea.
It's interesting.
Todd is sitting on a city bus, and he sees an old man, and he kind of does a double take, and he's really eyeballing this old man. And later we see him go to the man's house, and he wants to talk, and he's rebuked, and he starts, and the man's about to shut the door in his face, and he says, "I just want to talk to you." And he's like, go away. And he just starts naming his assignment stations in Nazi Germany. And he just matter-of-factly tells him that you're Kurt Dusander, Nazi war criminal. And the man's contending, no, I'm Arthur Denker. I'm a U.S. citizen. Yeah. And he's like, and he tells him he has 12 sets of fingerprints that he's pulled from his mailbox and various things. As you mentioned, he's a smart kid.
Yeah.
And he was able to put all this information together.
Yeah, I'm an adult, and I'm like, well, how do you do that?
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, it's harder than it looks in the movies. Yeah. But he tells me, look, I'm not here to give you a hard time. I just want to hear what it was like.
Yeah, and his character Arthur, he comes off very feeble, and why are you doing this to me? I'm just an old man. He's very chameleon-like in this entire movie.
It's like he had settled into a comfort. And what they start going through is pulling out this darkness inside of him is how I interpret it. And it's kind of a slow burn type of build, but just like a statement, like, the 16-year-old kid saying, "I want to hear what it was like," is horrifying in itself.
Yeah. Yeah. Because no one really wants to hear those stories. Like when you read Ordinary Men, that book, it's really hard to read that book. It's difficult. Like, it's emotionally difficult to read it. It leaves an impression on you. It's like, why would anyone want to just go to their neighbor, like, hey, tell me all your horrible war stories? Like, yeah. It's vicious.
Yeah. And it might be therapeutic for the people telling it, but, reading fiction in that vein might be fine. But when it's real, you're right. It's a different.
Impressionable.
Yeah. So Dusander, without much choice, begins telling him everything. And he's got tale after tale after tale, and Todd is fascinated by every awful detail. And he starts spending all of his time there, hearing all these horrible stories. And it's under the guise of him reading to an old man whose eyesight is failing. The thing I found funny that Stephen King revisited that very idea in later stories like Mr. Harrigan's Phone and Fairy Tale, involve a young boy who is reading to an old man. But in this case, it's not what's actually happening.
Was Fairy Tale, was that a recent book that he wrote?
Yes, that was his most recent release.
Have you read it already?
Yes, of course.
Of course. Yeah.
Todd is having nightmares and trouble sleeping, but still wants to hear more.
They're actually both having nightmares. I thought that was an interesting dichotomy. It's a kind of affecting them both, like you said, and they're kind of showing it shot for shot. They're each kind of being affected by it. Arthur's having all these demons being re-released into him, things he tried to put away, and now Todd is being affected at such a young age, like he's starting to kind of change as well.
Yeah, in a what I thought was a cool scene, the family wants to meet this older gentleman that you're spending all your time with, and they invite him to dinner.
The sweet old neighbor. Yeah.
Yeah, and he comes as Arthur Denker, obviously not as Kurt Dusander, but he's charming and he's funny and he's a great guest, and the family seems appeased.
Yeah, he's charming everyone. Yeah.
And in his next visit, Todd asks him how it felt killing people. and he wants to know what that feeling is like, and he just keeps going further down this rabbit hole. And the thing that, looking back on the movie, the thing that struck me about Todd is, he clearly, he's blackmailing an old man as a 16-year-old kid. He's forcing this situation with threats. Like there's a darkness inside him already there that it's not put there by Doosander. He had it already.
Yeah, he already had it. Like he gets his first paperback in the beginning. He'd only spent 1 month with them. He gets a paperback, he gets an A, and you can see him just doodling SWAT stickers on a piece of paper. Like he's already lost in it.
Yeah, just became obsessed. At school, in fact, right, like you're talking about, he's in the school showers, and he has this daydream that he's in gas chambers of a concentration camp, and he comes to, and everybody else is gone. He missed the period changeover. He's just completely coming unraveled, but won't stop.
Yeah. It's kind of just overtaking him. His grades are slipping. He can't sleep at night. He's messing up on all his schoolwork. He's getting all C's and D's.
Yeah. The next visit to Doosander, Todd shows up with a present, and we see Doosander, who's now struggling with his demons. He's drunk and asleep on the kitchen table. And Todd's gift, he bought him a high quality replica Nazi uniform.
Yeah.
And orders him to put it on.
Yeah. This is when it starts to feel like it's really like a hostage type situation.
It does. And it's uncomfortable. And again, you're looking at, a kid doing this to an adult, and it's like, wow, that takes some, I don't want to call it guts, but it takes a
little bit of evil,
inner fortitude and really black desires to do this.
Yeah, it does. The kid just has this evil demeanor about him. He's like I don't want to say punk, because punk's not good enough word, but he just has this punkish attitude. I'm just going to do it. Yeah, he's kind of being rude to his friend now all of a sudden, and he's not the kind of
kid you would expect to be top of his class. It's
right,
not the
exactly.
attitude he's showing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because Doosander doesn't want to put it on. But Todd has constant threats, and he's going to turn him in, and it keeps the relationship teetering on this edge, even though they both seem to enjoy each other's company, and they're building this unhealthy obsession together.
Yeah.
It's really strange,
it's very strange. And it's almost like you have to wonder, like, are they just doing it to see how far they can get away with it before it ends, or are they genuinely starting to enjoy each other? And there's some moments that make you think both. So it kind of keeps you on edge a little bit of a thriller.
Yeah. This is Doosander puts on the uniform, not given much choice, and Todd starts giving him drill and marching instructions. And this to me is the most horrific scene in the whole movie. Doosander is responding slow to the commands at first, but you actually see him almost become his old self, and he gets into a psychotic rhythm, and he's marching with like a determination and a focus that you could just see the man he used to be and see the evil. And to me, that was the most frightening scene.
Yeah. And the look on Todd's face starts to really just like come unglued. Like at first he was like, yeah, you're going to do what I say. And then when he gets a piece of it, when he starts to see him like really get into it, he starts to kind of see the horror of what he's asked for. Because he's asking him to stop. It's enough.
Yeah. He finishes his drill with a Heil Hitler salute that wasn't ordered by Todd.
Right.
And to your point, even Todd is shocked.
Yeah. And he kind of says, if you're going to play with fire, man, it's dangerous. You're going to bring something back in me. That's what he kind of says to him.
Yeah. To me,
it's unnerving. It's an unnerving scene. Yeah.
On rewatch, I thought this is for sure the most horrifying scene in the movie. Even though there's no blood and nothing happens, just seeing that transformation and seeing that killer that he once was emerge in his face of an old man. I thought it was brilliant acting.
Yeah, and it makes you like wonder, like like you said, his face kind of changes as well, and it's like, is he still capable of this? And like after that scene, it's like he is. It never went away.
Yeah. In fact, we see Doosander with all these dark memories brought up and the evil kind of brewing in him. He tries to kill a cat in his oven, and the cat scratches him and gets away. And it's kind of almost a humorous scene, but
It's that classic Stephen King type humor. I don't know if that's in the book, but it had that that odd
yeah,
humor to it.
it's something that shouldn't be funny, but kind of is, but really isn't.
Right. Yeah.
Todd is off with a girl, and she likes him, but his mind is elsewhere,
Yeah.
and he's totally not into it.
Yeah. He needs to talk to his doctor about ED.
Yeah, he just,
She's like, "What's wrong?" He's like, "I don't know. This never happens."
yeah, he's his mind is, he's lost in this world.
Yep.
As you mentioned, he's being an ass to his friend, and we see him at a gym shooting baskets, and he's just being really rude to his friend.
And he can't even shoot properly. He's just throwing it hard against he has no soft touch.
Yeah, he used to be a basketball player, but now he's just slamming it against the backboard.
Yep.
His friend leaves. He's like, screw you, man. And an injured pigeon comes in the doorway of the gym, and we see Todd come up to it and crush it with the basketball.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we that's kind of immediately after the Doosander with the cat thing, and we just see the parallels between the two. This kind of like symbiotic relationship that they're
that's
building.
Happening to both of them at the same time. Yeah, it's very well done as far as that goes. Showing them like each character kind of going through the same thing at the same time, and I kind of like how this thing can affect you regardless of your age.
Yeah, it's a disturbing movie, and it's a movie with almost no action. It's just not that kind of movie. It's a slow burn psychological thriller.
It's a psychological thriller, and there's parts of it that almost have a supernatural feel to it, like as if like this Nazi symbolism has this like can just take people over, it just has that supernatural feel to it. To me, it did.
As you mentioned, Todd's grades are failing. He gets his report card, and it's all low grades, D's, and this is from a kid who was consistent A's all around.
Yeah.
He blames Doosander for it and tells him about it,
which is brilliant. Instead of blaming himself, yeah, he's like, "This is your fault." I'm like, "Oh, he's gone."
Yeah, right. Doosander goes to his guidance counselor and poses as his grandfather, and they call in Todd. And the grandfather, or not really the grandfather, but Doosander tells the counselor about home troubles and all kinds of issues that don't really exist.
Yeah, he says the mom's a drunk or something like that.
Yeah, dad's running out and mom's a drunk, and just painting this horrible home picture. And the counselor is very understanding, and he makes kind of a deal with him that the finals are in like 3 weeks. If you ace all the finals, I'll wipe out all these grades and make the finals your grades for the courses. And so it's a good deal. Doosander helped him out of that pickle, and now he's got 3 weeks to crack the books and make it happen. We find Doosander is taken to wearing the uniform around the house, just wearing it randomly, which is creepy.
Yeah, now it's starting to kind of grow on him. He sees a homeless guy outside, and he's like he's in his uniform looking outside, and
Yep. Yeah, and it's like he's not hiding it in the window like you would think someone would be.
Yeah, imagine looking at your neighbor you see at nighttime, you see just walking around.
Yeah, those swastikas.
I'd be like, honey, we got to move.
So they kind of take a break so Todd can crack the books and really study. And he ends up acing all the tests and is reinstated at the top of his class. And after that, Doosander tells him that he has taken the break as an opportunity to document all of their interactions. how he approached him, how he threatened him, and all the things they've talked about over the months that they've been spending time together. And he's put this letter in a safe deposit box that can only be opened by him or would be opened by the authorities upon his death.
Right. And he's like, and also the guidance counselor, like, you willingly participated in that lie. So he's like, he's kind of like, I got you. Like, he kind of set that up on purpose.
Yeah. So now they've screwed each other over,
Mm-hmm.
and they kind of have this stalemate of, well, if you screw me, I screw you. If you screw me, I screw you. Stalemate.
Yeah.
So Todd tells him he won't be seeing him anymore. And Todd starts dating the girl with more success this time. We see him playing baseball and playing basketball. And basically, life has returned to normal for him. He went through this phase, and now he seems to be kind of back to himself.
Yeah. He got his grades back up.
Doosander's approached by a bum from the bus he's riding. And the bum is offering to help him carry stuff in if he can just get a drink.
Yeah, it's the guy that's been rummaging through his trash, so he's been kind of scoping him out too.
He knows he's got empty bottles in there. He knows he's a big drinker.
Right.
He just wants a drink. So Doosander takes the opportunity, has him come in, and gets the man drunk. And he wants to show the man something in the cellar, and instead he sticks a knife in his back and pushes him down the cellar stairs. And he starts to go down to finish him off, and he really wants to relive his horrific time as a Nazi camp killer.
Yep.
But he starts to have a heart attack.
Yeah. Right there on the steps.
Right there on the steps.
Yeah.
So he calls Todd and reminds him of the safe deposit box. And without any choice, Todd rushes to his aid. And he shows Todd what's in the basement when he arrives. And Doosander shuts the door and locks Todd in the basement with the bum.
Yeah. Basically insinuating that you have to finish this job. Now you're insinuated with all this. Yeah.
Right. And in the bum is injured, but not dead.
I thought he was dead.
Yeah, you would think, but he's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he comes at Todd, and Todd picks up a shovel and finishes him off with the shovel.
Yeah. Yeah.
He hits him in the head till he dies.
Yeah, multiple times.
And he goes back to the door and tells Doosander he's dead, and that he demands the safe deposit key before he'll call an ambulance. And at this point, Doosander tells him there was no key and that he was bluffing. And he just wanted the protection of him thinking there was a key.
Yeah, and he believes him.
But now he says, I don't need it anymore because you just killed somebody, so I have all the protection I need.
Right.
So the ambulance comes and takes him away, and Todd buries the body in the cellar. He burns the Nazi uniform, and he's trying to make this whole life they exchanged didn't exist. And so Todd, with all that done, he visits Doosander at the hospital, and Doosander asks him how it felt to kill someone.
Which he asked him originally in the beginning, so they bring it back. He's like, "How's it feel, man?"
Yeah, it's gone complete full circle.
Yeah.
Todd finally leaves, and during the night, the man in the next bed over, he sees Doosander, and he has some semblance of recognition, similar to what Todd experienced on the bus way back at the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
And he comes over, and he's standing over the sleeping Doosander, and he's just staring at him. And we see the realization hit his face, and they flash down to show a concentration camp tattoo along his forearm. And the man just runs out to a nurse and collapses in tears. He can't even spit out a coherent sentence. He's so shook.
Yeah.
And it comes out that Doosander had killed his wife and 2 daughters back in the concentration camp.
Yeah, and he had been in there for 10 months or something. He escaped, and yeah.
And now Doosander wakes up to the FBI and an extradition specialist for Israel standing over his bed.
Mm-hmm.
While this is happening, we hear Todd give his commencement speech, and we see the authorities are searching Doosander's home, and they find the body in the basement, and all these things are happening at once.
Yeah. It's juxtaposed very nicely because while this is all happening, Todd's giving the speech about excellence, that like, that classic graduation speech,
Hmm.
and it's like, but he's got a dirty little secret.
Yeah. And the people searching the home, they find the body in the basement. After graduation, they interviewed Todd, who convinces them he had no idea anything about the man and
Yep.
didn't know who Doosander was. Thought he was,
Yeah,
Arthur
he's play
Danker.
he plays the same game that Arthur was playing. He's just being a chameleon now. He's like, I'm just an innocent kid. I don't know. Like I was, I was just helping him read letters because he's a sweet old man. That's what I thought. So
Yeah.
like he's kind of the evil chameleon that Arthur was.
And in the hospital, the FBI and the extradition specialist are coming to get Doosander. They're going to proceed with his war trial and sending him to Israel to be put on trial for all of his war crimes. And Doosander knows he's toast, so he kills himself with an air bubble, creating an air embolism using his IV. And it's next we see Mr. French confronts Todd after seeing the news and now knowing that it wasn't Todd's grandfather and that it was part of some scheme. And Todd angrily and very nastily threatens him with unfound sexual accusations.
Yeah,
And, you gave me your home phone number, you pervert.
yeah.
And
You
basically
fixed my
tells him,
grades. Yeah.
yeah, you keep your mouth shut or it's going to end badly for you.
Mhm.
And he shows that evil and darkness that was inside of him all along. And it wasn't really fostered by Doosander. It was just there.
Yeah, it was inside him all along.
Yeah, it's this movie to me is a deep character study, and it's a disturbing movie. It might not be for everyone. Again, it's not a lot of action. It's a thoughtful piece. There are you hadn't seen this movie before?
I had years ago when I was watching it, it started coming back to me.
Oh, okay.
I just forgot. I don't know why I forgot it. Like, yeah,
Yeah,
but
Ian
I'd seen it.
McKellen
Mm.
played Doosander, and I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, I thought the acting was very well done. I mean, everything about this movie to me is great. Like you said, it's not everyone's cup of tea, but it's disturbing. It's thoughtful, like you said. It's well written. It's well acted. It doesn't try to be something it's not. It's actually very unique.
Definitely. There are several differences from the book or from the novella. It's a shorter period of time. They over in the novella, this actually goes on for years. In here, it's in one school season.
Yeah.
And the ending of the book is dramatically different. Mr. French's fate in the novella, Todd kills him,
Yeah.
and then Todd goes on a shooting spree, which is it's just something that's not going to be filmed today. We don't need it. It's
Right.
You can turn on the news and see that happening for real. So it
Right.
doesn't need to
Right.
be in your fiction.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think the way they did it was well done for a 2 hour and 45-minute movie. Yeah, I mean that's another thing too. Like a lot of people say, well, the book's better. It's like it's two different mediums, right?
Yeah.
A book you can have 700 pages and you can just indulge in lots of different backstory and things of that nature. Whereas a movie you have an hour and a half to tell the story, so it has to be told differently.
Yeah. No, they were just differences.
Yeah,
I thought the movie did an excellent job of capturing the essence of what the book
of
was about.
what the novella was. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Our second film is Overlord from 2018, directed by Julius Avery, and this was produced by J.J. Abrams. I remember I saw this in the theaters. I remember when I heard this was coming out. J.J. Abrams is making a Nazi zombie movie. I'm like, oh my God, where did I get my tickets?
Sign me up. Yeah.
Is this something you had seen before?
No, I hadn't seen it. It slipped through my fingers. I think it was on my queue for a while, and somehow it's just one of those movies that you wanted to see and you didn't. But I was excited. I was excited for this topic because I was like, I get a chance to watch it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it, and it was good to rewatch it. Our movie opens with a squad of paratroopers flying into occupied France on the day before D-Day. So C-Day, I don't know. I don't think it has a name, but
Yeah.
and their mission is to take out a radio tower in a small town. The radio tower is on top of a church. And their mission will allow D-Day to happen because it's going to block communications.
Hmm.
So it's kind of a revisionist history, similar to like an Inglourious Bastards, where
Yeah.
you take a real situation and put fictional attributes to it.
Right.
The plane is shot by anti-aircraft weaponry, and it rips holes through the plane, and parts catch on fire, and the living soldiers on the plane end up needing to jump early.
Now, here's one thing I love about this movie is they used a lot of practical effects. And so I watched this movie on Amazon, so I rented it. And one of the trivia things that popped up in the corner said that they actually used a real plane and they blew it up. They kind of had it, like they had it on this, like, I forget what the thing was, but it was some kind of swivel, and they actually exploded the plane. So that was a real effect. And then they had the stuntman like jumping through it. And so they tried to do as many practical effects as they could in the movie to get as many visceral reactions from all the actors. So they tried to use minimal CGI.
One thing I'll say about this movie, and I think I mentioned this to you when we were talking about this topic, I thought the opening war action scenes, except for Saving Private Ryan, which is probably the pinnacle of that, I thought they were outstanding.
I loved it. Yeah,
I thought they were better done than many war movies.
Yeah, J.J. Abrams did a great job. He tends to do really good with these kinds of movies. So
most of the men were killed on the plane or during the fall, or when they were landed, they were captured and assassinated by Nazis. A small group unites on the ground and they proceed with the mission. Corporal Ford is now in charge, who is Wyatt Russell, Kurt Russell's son, who this is the first thing I had ever seen him in. And
me too. He was really good, though. I liked him.
He was really good. He's got his dad's kind of snarl look to him, and his name's Wyatt Russell. Like, I'm always going to be rooting for the guy, right?
Yeah, exactly. Right. Yeah. Tombstone.
He's in charge now, and he's with Boyd, Tibbet, and Chase is just a photographer. So they have a very limited crew that needs to pull off this mission still.
Yeah, and they're kind of drafted too. Like some of them are, some of them aren't. They're kind of, some of them a little skittish.
Yeah, Boyd is particularly, the rest of the group made fun of him a lot. He's only been he got drafted a month ago.
He said he was mowing his lawn, and next thing you know, he's here. Yeah, he's not really a killer.
He rescued they told him to get rid of a mouse, and he rescued it and put it out in the woods, and it came back because he didn't want to kill it for no reason. Yeah. So he's painted as this the non-soldier of the soldiers.
Yeah, more of a peacemaker.
Yeah. He shows a high moral compass through the whole movie.
Right.
The group sees a woman, Chloe, and she's running through the forest, and they chase her. And they catch her. They find out that she hates the Nazis as much as they do. And she leads them, sneaks them into her town, and hides them in her house that she shares with her little brother, Paul, and her sick aunt. And we get a glimpse of the aunt, and she's hideous. Yeah,
it's almost like like is she a zombie or something? Like there's heavy breathing, and
she. What I wrote down was she looked to me like Brundlefly halfway through the transformation.
yeah, that's a great one. Yeah,
I'm like, and they only give you a glimpse. It was well done. It's just like,
real quick.
You hear the raspy breathing, and you get a shot through a cracked doorway, and it's like, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
So she's hiding them up in the attic, the soldiers, and they're trying to put their plan together to carry out this mission and destroy this radio tower. A group of Nazis visits Chloe's house, and Wafner, who is the leader, he starts playing like he's trying to seduce her, but in the end, it's ultimately he's forcing himself on her.
Yeah, and it's that I don't want to say stereotypical, but like that scene, the very Anne Frank, they're coming in the house and there's someone hiding out in the house, and it's that tense moment.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're in the attic. So
yeah.
Perfect analogy. Boyd can't stand by and let him sexually assault her, so he steps out and hits the guy on the back of the head to get him off her, and and in doing so, he puts the whole mission at risk.
Yeah.
But that his moral compass won't allow him to just ignore it.
Yeah, but a Corporal Ford at the same time, Wyatt Russell, he's kind of like jumps in and helps him, and then when he's done, he's like, "Damn it! Like this wasn't the mission." But
Right.
He's also not going to let Boyce like just do this by himself. He's kind of like, "All right, let's do this together."
Yeah. So they tie the Nazi Wafner up in the attic, and Boyd goes out and he's scouring the church, and he's scouting the church, and he's looking for how are they going to get in, how many guards are there. And he sees them bring out a group of sick people, much like the ant, and they just mow them down with flamethrowers, burning them all to death. So he's going to report that back, but he ends up getting chased by a wolf, and he gets in the back of a truck, and the truck is just transporting bodies of dead people. Yeah. So he kind of plays dead and ends up inside the church compound.
Yeah, he's in like a little like Conestoga van of just like dead bodies, and he's like, ah.
Yeah, and they're in various stages of rot and rigor mortis,
decay, and
he's trying to blend in, but
blood, and
he but he's inside, so he takes advantage of it, and he starts searching around, and the church compound has basically become a giant lab, and he starts going through this lab, and it's just filled with atrocities. There's like these membrane sacks hanging from the ceiling that have
like
people
cocoons
moving
or
around
something
in
like
them. Almost like a chrysalis, and he finds a screaming head, and it's just a head and a spine and a dish, very Reanimator-ish. The head's just screaming.
It's talking or something like that. Yeah, you just see the spine. I thought that was one of the coolest parts of the movie. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, this laboratory of atrocities is just, you could do anything.
Yeah,
as a creative, special effects person, it's like, okay, go.
What do you got to do? I like the Reanimator analogy you just give. That's a great one.
He sees these vials of orange fluid, and he steals one and brings it with him. And as he's trying to get out, he sees one of their squadron is on the table with hoses hooked up to him, and they're not hoses like you would see in a medical facility. There's like a giant, like a vacuum cleaner hose, like stuck into a puckered hole in the guy's chest and stomach, really odd hookup.
Yeah, everything has this very like I don't know, this like alien steampunk kind of like look to it. Like it doesn't. Yeah, it's just it's a lot. It's gruesome looking.
Yeah, and everything's just weird. Yeah. He manages to unhook the hoses, and anyways, he tries to pull it free. It's like pulling up the man's
and you can see like the bloody needle is like coming out. It's like this big 8-inch needle that's coming out of his stomach, and they're just showing like gooping with blood.
Yeah, he manages to get him free, and they escape together through the sewer grate. Back at the house, they show the serum to Wafner, and they want to know what the heck it is. And all he will tell them in his, evil German voice, which that guy plays it very well.
Yeah, he did. Yeah. I was wondering when I was watching the movie, I was like, have I seen him in this role before?
It's like he was born to play it.
Yeah, it was familiar. Yeah.
And all he will say is now the people have a purpose.
Yeah. I'm not going to talk, coppers. Yeah, that's kind of his attitude.
Yeah. Chloe ends up stabbing him in the leg, and then Ford beats him badly looking for information. And he comes downstairs. People have left because it's disturbing the level of violence that Ford is perpetrating on this man.
Yeah.
And he
had originally said like that's not our mission. He keeps saying our mission is to do this, our mission is to do this, and now all of a sudden he's kind of obsessed with beating this guy up, and they're trying to tell him this isn't our mission. So they're kind of like reiterating what he had said to them.
Yeah, he does want to know how many people are in there, but his line of questioning, he just, and
he wants to beat the crap out of the Nazi. That's what he wants to do.
They're like, well, you're acting like they act, and he's like, if you want to beat them, you got to play at their level. Which is polar opposite of how Boyd approaches everything. But he comes downstairs, and he did get some information out, and he sends Chase back up to bring the Nazi down. And when he goes to move him, I mean, he was beaten horrendously. He plays dead, and he tricks Chase, and he ends up tripping him, getting his gun, and shooting him dead. And they come up, and Boyce is upset that he allowed this to happen, and he injects Chase with the serum, which is a weird move because you have no idea.
You don't know what it's going to do. Yeah, you don't know what it's going to do. So
we find out quickly what it does, and this is a terrific scene.
Yeah.
Chase sits up and starts talking, and he says, we just watched him have a death scene and a goodbye.
Which I thought was cool acting. Like he's having this, I'm dying. Am I dying? He has that classic war scene where he's dying. And I was like, oh, that was actually well done.
Yeah,
and
it's not bad.
Turns around and, it's not that bad.
You'll be okay.
Yeah. I feel real cold. Yeah.
You can hear his breathing's raspy, like there's a hole in his lung, and and then
they turn it around, and he's like, he jumps up like he
sits up and he's like, hey, it doesn't hurt anymore, fellas. And he's like, this feels great. And then he stands up and he starts to transform into this monstrous zombie soldier.
Yeah, his neck snaps all the way back, and he gets this like collarbone of neck bones that are all broken and brittle, and it's just it's pretty gnarly.
Was a great effect.
Yeah, that was one of the best effects of the movie.
I agree. He has super strength, and he starts attacking everyone.
Yeah.
And he's just going nuts, and he throws people through walls because he's got this super strength, and they shoot him and it has no effect.
Yeah.
And Boyce ends up knocking him down with a bat, and then he just starts beating on his head with the bat repeatedly until it's pulp.
Yeah,
and finally puts him down.
And then Franz says, 1,000-year Reich needs 1,000-year warriors. So we get the idea that the serum is like an immortality thing.
Right. Yeah, that was a great line.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that up. I meant to write that one down. Yeah, that was a great line. This chaos is going on. The Nazi escapes, and he takes young Paul with him. And so they chase him out, and he gets in a car with the Nazis. He's got the boy, and Ford manages to shoot him in the face as he's escaping. And I thought he was dead at first.
Yeah.
But he gets back to the lab, and he's just got a hole in his cheek and face where the bullet went.
Yeah.
But he injects himself with a vial of the serum. And as he starts to hideously transform, his face is basically split right open where he was shot.
Yeah.
And he's just a hideous monster with this super strength and this desire for vengeance against the Americans.
He thinks he's like a god now. And he's like a super soldier, but like the special effects were fantastic. Like the practical effects they used were top notch.
Yeah. The rest of the movie, his face is split open.
Yeah, just like that. Yeah, there's no CGI. You can tell they probably added some after, but that was really, it was very well done.
Yeah. So the 4 soldiers and Chloe make a plan to enter the compound, where they now have agreed on multiple objectives. They're going to rescue Paul, destroy the lab, and complete the original mission by taking the tower down.
Yeah. And at this point in the movie, by the way, I think the pacing is fantastic. It just keeps going right along. There's a lot of good action. It's like from the very beginning.
Yeah, there is. I thought the scene was particularly enjoyable. Chloe lures a soldier to chase her, and then they jump him and they capture him, and they put him back on his motorbike with a grenade stuffed in his mouth and tape over his mouth, and the tape is attached to the pin.
And his hands are taped to the bike. Yeah.
So they send his bike back into the camp, and he's and all anyone can do is run over and pull the tape off his mouth.
Yeah.
Which pops the pin, and him and a group of Nazis all blow up.
Yeah, I was even rooting for it. I was like, take the tape off.
Yeah, let's see it. Again, cool effects. It was a cool scene. A little bit of humor.
Yeah.
So they get the distraction, and 2 of the men stay outside, and Ford, Boyce, and Chloe go in through the sewer grates. and she splits off to go find her brother. While the soldiers are going to wire the place to blow it up and put an end to it all. She finds Paul, but when they're escaping, she is confronted by one of the zombie soldiers, and she shoots it in the head, and it just keeps coming at her. And the only way she overcomes it is by finding a flamethrower, burning it to a crisp.
Yeah. I did not see that coming.
So we find super Nazi Wafner. He interrupts Ford wiring the bombs, and he attacks him. Of course, he has a super strength now, so he definitely has the upper hand. He's beating Ford, and he's throwing him, through beams and just really kicking the crap out of him.
I thought this part was actually kind of particularly funny because everyone gets to fight someone that's kind of at their level. Like Boyd's fighting the doctor.
Right.
And then you have the corporal fighting Franz. Like they kind of each had someone for their weight class.
Yeah. Well, with the injection, there's no match here for Wafner.
Yeah.
The super soldier now. He ends up lifting Ford up and impales him, hangs him from a hook.
Yeah, it was pretty vicious.
And it's just sticking through his gut, and it was it was
right in the front,
brutal.
like right under his sternum, kind of just gets him in there.
And he's just hanging there, helpless. And Boyce comes in and after he kills the scientist, and he tries shooting Wafner, but it has no effect, and he's obviously no match for him. So he goes over and he attacks Boyce, and he throws him. And while he's doing this, Ford lifts himself off the hook, which is got to be one of the most incredible feats of agony.
Yeah, well, I thought that would kill you, but I mean, whatever. It's a fun movie, so.
Right. Yeah. Well, it won't kill you if you can make it to the serum fast enough, which is what Ford does.
Yeah.
He figures he's toast at this point, so he injects himself with the serum, and now the two super warriors fight each other. And
which I thought was awesome. I was like, yeah, why not? Round 2. Let's
right.
It was
now
like
it's,
a Rocky
now it's more
movie.
equal footing.
He got it. It's ready to keep going.
But Wafner still ends up with the upper hand, but Ford signals Boyce to go ahead and shoot, and he shoots an oxygen tank, and it blows up Wafner and sends him down a hole. So they go to leave, and then Ford locks himself in and tells Boyce, you got to make sure the radio tower goes down. Back to mission 1.
Yeah.
And we see Boyce leave, and he's trying to escape, and we see Wafner now he's completely mangled from being blown up, but he's still alive. He climbs out of the hole, and all of the sacks hanging in the lab all start ripping open, and all these super zombies start coming out of it.
Yeah.
So Ford just sits there waiting till they all get close, and he's got a brick of C4 in his hand, and when they get close, he blows up the entire place, including himself.
Yeah.
And just ends them all.
And then you have Boyd just kind of running out as the place is just like kind of toppling and like just like falling apart, and he's like trying to get out, almost like Indiana Jones running from the boulder. Like he's like running from the wreckage. Yeah.
Yeah, he looks back and he sees the communication tower fall as well. Mm-hmm. So mission is accomplished.
Yeah.
And he makes it back to his group. Everyone there is fine except the one soldier did get shot in the shoulder while protecting the boy.
Yeah.
They had kind of a cute relationship where he kept
Tibet's like he's like the Brooklyn guy. He's like the Brooklyn pool playing guy, just the wise guy. And like the kid takes a liking to him, even though he's French and doesn't speak a lick of English. And then he kind of like he's annoyed with him at first, but then he kind of takes a liking to him too because he won't leave him alone. It's kind of this like it's like, this comedic relief.
Yeah, it was a cute relationship, and he ends up getting shot to protect the boy.
Yeah, and they're like playing cards together and stuff like that at the end. Yeah,
and the boy's mimicking however he stands.
Yeah, he's got a match in his mouth and he's wearing a helmet. Yeah,
yeah. It was cute.
Yeah,
everyone's fine except for the shoulder shot, and he's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And he goes to more soldiers come in. D-Day happens, and upon his debriefing, they ask him if there's anything in the basement of that church that that are worth digging out, and he tells them, no,
Nope.
nothing, just a communication tower. And he wants to just make sure no one has access to the serum and that type
keep
of
it
power.
buried. Just keep it buried underground. Yeah. It came from the tar of the ground, they said. So he's like, we'll just keep it down there.
Yeah. D-Day goes off successfully. And again, this is a revisionist history movie, but I consider this to be a B movie that was made with A-level people and A-level money and A-level technology.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it.
Because it is, it's got some cheesiness to it. It's got some over the topness to it, but everything was done top notch.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't have that, it's not going to have that Saving Private Ryan serious feel to it. Even just the cinematography, like the way things are done, it's just a fun movie, which is kind of a ridiculous thing given the premise, but the whole thing is just action packed and with a little bit of side humor.
It actually does share some plot points with a 2013 low budget found footage film called Frankenstein's Army, which is also about it's a descendant of Victor Frankenstein who's working with the Nazis, creating these soldiers of various medical mayhem that he's
that sounds like
together.
An interesting premise. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a good premise to go by because there was a lot of experimentation that the Nazis were doing with technology. So it's kind of like a fun thing to do, to go back and be like, well, what were the extreme things they could have been doing?
Right.
So I think it's something that's always going to be revisited. The evil empire is working on some kind of evil technology that no one else is working on.
Sure. Yeah, it makes sense. And I thought this was an enjoyable movie, and I thought it took the the Nazis played it straight. They were their evil manifestation, everything you would expect. And the war scenes were great. The effects were great. The acting was great.
You got a super serum soldier. You got the classic. I love like World War II movies because you always get a flamethrower, the most impractical weapon of all time.
Yeah, and you always get motorbikes with sidecars.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. This one blew up.
Yeah, I thought it was, for a delicate subject, I thought they handled it respectfully, but made a fun movie out of it as well.
Yeah, agreed.
All right. Well, that is our topic, Nazi nastiness. And it's funny, we were talking at the beginning about how it's just the most historically evil thing and the greatest manifestation of evil that we've experienced in the world so far, and hopefully always will be. But I realized when I was labeling my files for this episode, we call this episode Nazi nastiness. I labeled my files nastiness because I didn't want to have files on my computer that were labeled Nazi.
I should probably go change mine too then.
That's just like, it was just a subconscious thing of like, I don't want any association.
But you know what? That's how dark of a subject it is, though.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Where I'm not going to put anything called Nazi on my computer.
Yeah. You don't want a little SWAT sticker picture or anything like that. Yeah, I agree. It's that sensitive of a subject. So I hope we handled it with care, the best we could with these types of movies, and trying to also have fun enjoying these films. But it's one of the most deafening things that ever happened in history.
For sure. There's a few other movies we could have looked at here, Frankenstein's Army being one of them. Considered that, but because of the plot being so similar to Overlord, didn't want to, tread the same ground twice.
I looked at a lot. Yeah, Dead Snow. Yeah, that was one with the homicides, I believe. There's a lot of different ones that were kind of like the D-Day type thing, and there's a lot of B movies like that.
Yeah, Shockwaves is I believe it's an Italian Nazi zombie movie from the 70s. But there's not a ton.
Is that considered a giallo film?
I don't think so. It does not fit the definitions. But other than the real B's, there's not a ton. It's just a subject most people prefer to stay away from, and understandably.
Yeah, I understand.
All right, so that's our episode for this week. Concludes Nazi nastiness. We'll be back with another episode next week. As always, we appreciate you listening or watching. This is the Weekly Horoscope. I'm Jerry. That's Matt, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Thank you, Jerry. Thank you, everyone.
Your weekly horoscope with Jerry and Matt.